Okay. Okay. Greetings, everyone. This is Cassandra Faye Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates, founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. Hey, Frank, how you doing? So, I wanted to shout out my homework girl. Her IG is Gata the Bat. I think it's Gata the Batty. She has a podcast. This is her fem festing cookware. You understand? So I'm gonna scroll that screen down. See, it says instead of manifesting, fem festing. So I thought I would show that out off and shout her out. So GATA, GATA, the baddie on IG, and check out her podcast too. Her podcast, I believe, is Got to the Bureaucratic Baddie. Wonderful, wonderful podcast. Get all the inside scoop on how to sue your landlord, how to file your taxes if you're a sex worker, she got all the goods. She got all the scoop. So check out Gata, the Bureaucratic Baddies. Okay. So let's see. So as promised just a few minutes ago, I am going to read two missing chapters from the book Communion, The Female Search for Love by Bell Hooks. So I posted this a couple of months ago from my old Facebook posting. At the beginning of pandemic, I read this book live on Facebook. And so instead of rereading it, I just downloaded all those videos and uploaded them to my YouTube channel. But one of the readings was too long to post through StreamYard. So somebody hit my attention yesterday that chapter 11 and 12 was missing from that reading that is on YouTube. So I'm going to take the time to read chapter 11 and 12 today. For those who followed the reading of the book Communion and were missing 11 and 12. So that's all I got to say about that. If you are tuning in from Facebook, IG, or Twitch, my call is that you tune in from YouTube so that if you haven't, you can subscribe to my channel. One, you can like and share so that I can get, my watch hours up and my subscribers up, for economic purposes, hopefully. I mean, they may not ever, I say that all the time, they may not ever monetize my page just because I love using explicatives and I just don't really see a future of any kind where I'm not seasoning my presentations with an explicative here or there or scattered throughout. So with the language that I prefer to use, YouTube may not ever monetize my page, truth be told, because I've seen them demonetize people's pages for way, way less. However, just to rule it out, I would like to get my subscriber hours up and my my watch hours up. So if you could do me the favor, tune in from YouTube. I'm streaming right now through IG, through YouTube, and through Twitch. So on Facebook too. So thank you so much, and we will continue with the reading of Communion, the Female Search for Love. So we're going to start with chapter 11, which is entitled The Search for Men Who Love for a Man Are Two Very Different Agendas. Most women without male partners are looking for a man. And guess what? Men are easy to find. Finding a man saying love. To find love, the male partner, women have to be clear that this is. The feminist movement exposed the harsh truth of woman hating. More than at any other time in the history of this nation, the word misogynist became commonest patriarchal, woman-hating man. But the other reality that feminism exposed, which was more uncomfortable for women to talk about, was the female hatred of men. Years ago, in the heyday of the contemporary feminist movement, I remember lesbian women joking all the time about how wrong the world was in casting them in the role of man haters, because everyone knew that if you gathered a bunch of women together in a room and started talking about men, the most vicious man hating sentiments would be expressed by women who were with men and who were planning to stay with men for the rest of their lives. Hearing these comments again and again, firsthand, hearing these comments again and again, firsthand the truth in these words, I searched my soul to see what my honest feelings about men were. I determined that if I looked inside and saw that I really held men in contempt, I would cease considering them as potential partners and lovers. When I looked inside, I found my thinking about men dominated by three images: my patriarchal father, whom I feared and at times hated and wished was dead; my eccentric anti-patriarchal grandfather, whom I never feared, loved at all times, and wanted to live forever; and my playful older brother. My father did not care for our souls. He worked hard to care for our material needs. I appreciated this, but I never felt he loved me, even when I tried to please him to meet the conditions that he set. Even though I was told that he had been mad about me, thrilled with his new baby girl when I was first born, taking me everywhere and showing me off, the dad I knew most intimately was cold, withholding, aloof, and emotionally shut down. Daddy Gus, my grandfather, was anti-materialistic and loved me unconditionally. Daddy was given to intense anger and now and then would throw a major violent fit. Our granddad was always kind and gentle, and he never spoke in anger. Our mother told us that he was not this way just with his grandchildren, that he had been the same with his own children throughout their lives. She admired and loved him. Then there was my brother, Kenneth. We looked like twins, even though he came first, 8 months before me. Kenneth was everything a boy was not supposed to be: sweet, tender, playful, and fearful of being hurt. He charmed us with his humor. He was everything Dad was not. His sisters loved him, and he loved us. He loved our brother, the eternal boy, ever Peter Pan, but we mostly feared grown men. Honestly, had Mama's father, Daddy Gus, not been in my life, I believe I might easily have become a man-hating woman, or at best a woman who just simply feared men. Lots of women fear men, and fear can lay the foundation for contempt and hatred. It can be a cover-up for repressed killing rage. When girl children are learning what men are when girl children are learning what men are like within patriarchal culture and shaping our sense of them, we look to the male authority we know to teach us about masculinity. If the primary male figures in our lives are cruel, unkind, and in some cases violently abusive, this is the way that we think men are. If the men in our lives are our fathers, uncles, grandfathers, brothers, stand idly by while elder women abuse us, then we lose respect for them. We do not forgive them their failure to protect us from harm. I am grateful that the images of masculinity surrounding me as a child were varied. I knew that lots of men were macho, like my dad, but I also knew there were men like my granddad, calm, gentle, and kind. These diverse images shaped my perspective. In my childhood, there were men who were not ashamed to express their love of God openly and to shed ecstatic tears. These men were renegades, rebelling against the patriarchal norm. And they were men I was destined to love, the sensitive, soulful, shy men who were looked down upon by patriarchy. The men who inhabited my dreams were men of feeling. When I entered wholeheartedly into the feminist movement, I had the full encouragement of my male partner, whose personality, as it turned out, was a mixture of my dad and my granddad. At that moment in our lives, we had not fallen into the gender strife that would later lead us to separate. Then he supported my efforts to become a liberated woman. He was not homophobic, and at no time did he worry about all did he worry about all the time I was spending with lesbian feminists, as some men did. In our groups, women confessed that the men in their lives did not want them to hang out with lesbians. Their partners believed that they would turn into lesbians just by sitting next to one. We laughed at those stories and we felt sad for those men who were missing out on friendships that might have changed their perspective on love and life. In those days, we used the phrase male identified to describe women who did not necessarily like men, though they usually pretended to, but who supported any standpoint men in their lives held, who let their own opinions go to please men. Some of these women were subordinated against their will, but many of them were artful manipulators, pretending to embody the sexist feminine ideal, even as they were contemptuous of real men, whom they believed to be stupid and childlike. Retrospectively, I can see that our phrase was incomplete. These females who not simply these females were not simply male identified, they were patriarchally male identified. Even then, the most radical feminist woman knew that not all men wanted to be patriarchs. Male identified women espoused the same negative sexist notions about gender common to any sexist man. They were not interested in the perspectives of progressive male advocates of feminism. To them, these men were not, quote, real men. In our feminist consciousness raising groups, women involved with men often had the harshest stories to tell. Knowing men intimately, up close and personal, they also knew the immediacy of male afflicted pain. They knew about emotional abuse and domestic violence. Their rage at men was intense and unrelenting. At times, it was infectious. It was difficult to hear a woman describing being raped repeatedly by an angry dad as a child, then running away from home with the first guy who was nice to her, only to find out later that when he was angry, she was the punching bag for his rage, and on, and not feel anti male. These stories were commonplace. Sitting in intimate circles, listening to so much pain made listening to so much pain made us want to get rid of abusive men. It was easy to fantasize about finding them, interrogating them to discover whether they had ever abused a female, lining up the abusers, and blowing them all away. Mm, and blowing them all away. Afterward, you would go to the women they had hurt and assure them, he will never hurt you again, never again. These fantasies did not emerge from an irrational urge to bash men. They were the stuff of feminist dreams of ending male violence against women. They were the stuff of wanting to know what the world would be like if it were a place where women could roam freely, where we could take back the night. Oh my God. Where we could take back the night. And of course, there were women in these groups who hated men and wanted revenge. But most of them expressed their rage and then went home to nurture and care for the men in their lives. Rarely were they lesbians. Rarely were they lesbians. Women's disappointment with men is rarely given a public hearing in our society. The flip side of feminist consciousness raising, the flip side of the feminist consciousness raising group was the informal gathering of wives in any community who played cards, shopped, and shared. In between the gossip about this and that, their rage and anger at men. Unlike feminists, they did not want men to stop being patriarchs. They just wanted men to be kinder, gentler patriarchs. Oh, they just wanted men. Okay, using feminist terms, we call these men benevolent patriarchs. They were men who believed themselves to be superior to women and therefore felt that they should rule over us. They just thought they should be kind providers and protectors. Prior to major feminist shifts in gender roles in our society, men who were cruel and abusive usually found male identified women to help justify and legitimize their actions. However, as a feminist, thinking about ending male violence against women, however diluted, has trickled down to the larger culture. Most women will speak against male domination against male violence, but still support patriarchal culture. Women, like my mother, who have stayed in marriages with unkind husbands for more than 50 years, will condemn acts of cruelty and unkindness that as late as 10 years ago they would have sought to justify or explain away. Whenever I would speak harshly about my father, my mother would always speak positively, reminding me of how steady a provider he had been. In recent years, she has become more critical of his acts of unkindness, and she has grown bitter. Nowadays, past the age of 60, when she makes comments about men in general, they are more likely to be negative than positive. As a mother of six grown daughters, several of whom suffered at the hands of unkind, abusive men, she, a traditionally male identified woman, has begun to change her perspective. Now she knows that women are not to be blamed when men are treating us in violent and or cruel ways. More than ever before in our nation's history, women in general feel free to speak their resentment and rage at men. My youngest sister wears a button reading so many men, so many reasons not to sleep with any of them. Oh my God. Woo! Oh my God. You. Anyway, in the wake of contemporary feminist movement, it has become harder to articulate what we like, desire, and love about men. In this world where so many women work, few females talk about the pleasure of being economically supported by a male partner's income. And even a woman like Jane Fonda, married to one of the richest men in the world, who freed her from work, now testifies that she felt she was losing her identity in her marriage, and she left and began to create her own work projects. Overall, women seem to agree that unless one has pleasurable and engaging pursuits, staying home is no fun. As should be the case, many working women find it wonderful to be home when they have a newborn baby. But even newborns grow up. The feminist movement created the social space for men to choose to stay at home and be house husbands. And like housewives, they suffer the same complaints if they were unable to use their time away from a paid job meaningfully. In Arlie Hochschild's book, The Time Bind, When Work Becomes Home and Home Becomes Work, women acknowledge that they prefer working low paying jobs even if they must do a second shift at home. They would rather work than be financially dependent on men. They would rather leave home and work even if they do not earn enough money to be free. If wages for housework had become a reality, this might not be the case. A domestic revolution might occur if wages for homemakers, like child support in some states, were automatically deducted from the working partner's paycheck. Whether they think of themselves as feminists or not, more women than ever before face the reality that we live in a male-dominated society, and many women like it And when many women like it like that, as long as they derive benefits from men and no negative side effects. The negative side effects, tyranny in the household or sexual violence, no woman likes or wants. What most women do not choose to face is the reality that if you support patriarchy, you get negative side effects. As Elizabeth Wurtzel puts it, it still feels like men have all the power. They still seem to obey their impulses to run away while women are enslaved to their impulses to run towards. As long as men continually get messages about avoiding commitment while women are taught to desperately seek it out, the sexes will always be at odds with each other and nothing will work. Of course, many men in patriarchal relationships deploy emotional abuse and physical violence to avoid intimacy. Perpetuating this violence makes the system of patriarchy work. Oh, oh, oh my God. Okay? Oh, without male violence blocking the door, men might be emotionally open. They might find their way to the love. The popularity of books like John Gray's Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus indicates that lots of folks want to believe that women are innately different from men in personality and habits of being, and that these differences naturally maintain social order. They choose denial over facing the reality that the gender differences we were once taught are innate are really mostly learned. That while biology is significant and should not be discounted, it is not destiny. Nowadays, almost everyone knows that not all men are stronger than women, or smarter, or less emotional, and so on. Sexist notions of gender rarely hold up when we look at real life. And they hold up even less when we go outside the boundaries of this culture and look at males and females in other cultures. Living in the United States, people easily forget or remain ignorant of the reality that women in other parts of the world often do much more physically arduous labor than do their male counterparts, or that a great majority of men in the world are suffering from malnutrition and starving and are nowhere near the physical equals of females eating 3 meals a day who are citizens of rich nations. The aspect of patriarchy that most women want to change is the unkindness and cruelty of men, their contempt and dislike of women. It is a testament to the learned ignorance of political reality that so many females cannot accept that patriarchy requires of men cruelty to women. Okay? That the will to do violence define. Oh, oh my God. Listen, it is a testament to the learned. It is a testament to the learned ignorance of political reality that so many females cannot accept that patriarchy requires of men cruelty to women, that the will to do violence defines heterosexual patriarchal masculinity. Liberal, benevolent, patriarchal writers like John Gray offer women strategies for coping with male and female mutual dislike. In all his work, Gray basically encourages women and men to accept their differences and find ways to avoid conflict and abusive behavior. Superficially, it may appear that the popularity of his work exposes women's passive acceptance of patriarchal thinking, but it is in fact women's dissatisfaction with negative aspects of patriarchy that creates an audience for this work. While it may help women to cope with patriarchal men, Gray's work does not call for an end to male domination. Instead, it perpetuates the conventional sexist belief that it is natural for males to desire dominion over others. Oh my God. Many women feel despair about patriarchy's ending and try to find ways to cope with male domination that will heighten their well-being. It is certainly clear that sexist men are not rushing out to buy literature that will help them unlearn sexist thinking. Patriarchal thinking keeps women and men separate. locked in the artificial differences that Gray and other thinkers like him choose to regard as natural. Nothing was more frightening to women. Nothing was more frightening to women who wanted to be with men than a feminist movement exposing the depths of male contempt and disregard for the female sex. Luckily, by changing the workforce, the feminist movement did alter in fundamental ways how men see women. Yet, despite the feminist call to change patriarchal thinking that denies men access to emotional growth, most men continue to believe it's natural for them to behave as though emotions do not matter, as though all emotional work, including loving, is primarily a female task. The first chapter of Sheer Height's report, Women and Love, cites men's emotional withholding and distancing, their reluctance to talk about personal thoughts and feelings as a major problem. Height reports 98% of the women in this study say that they would like more verbal closeness with the men that they love, that they want the men in their lives to talk more about their own personal thoughts, feelings, plans, and questions, and to ask them more about theirs. I read this and remembered the card by the cartoonist Nicole Hollander that has an image on the cover of a woman sitting in front of a female psychic who stares into a crystal ball. The woman is saying, "Why won't you? Why won't he talk about his feelings?" The woman is saying, "Why won't he talk about his feelings?" And when you open the card, the caption reads, "At 2 a.m., men all over the world will talk about their feelings, and women all over the world will be sorry." Shh. I purchased this card years ago and held on to it. It reminded me of the occasions in therapy with my longtime partner when he would say that I always encouraged him to talk about his feelings, but when he did, everything he shared upset me. Oh, this made him want to remain silent. What he shared usually exposed that he was not the person I thought he was, that his values, ethics, and beliefs were radically different from mine. Try having a conversation with almost any man about whether it is best to cease sexual intercourse if a woman is uncomfortable. Most men want to continue coitus irrespect. Most men want to continue coitus irrespective of what a woman feels. And if women talked to men about this openly, they would know that men feel this that they would know that men feel this way before they engage in sexual activity with them. Much of what men have to say would be a turnoff. So no wonder many male seducers learn to keep their thoughts to themselves, the better to manipulate and con their female admirers. Oh shit. Women are afraid to hear patriarchal men speak their thoughts and feelings when what they reveal expresses a reality vastly different from how we imagined them to be. Okay? Not only does this speaking expose our differences, the ways that we do not connect, it exposes the possibility that we may not be able to connect. This is the possibility that the card alludes to. Patriarchal men seem to know this better than women. Their silence helps to maintain patriarchy. Oh my God. Oh, listen. Their silence helps to maintain patriarchy. Oh my God. When they speak their thoughts and feelings that reveal pathological narcissism or negate concern for love, it becomes clearer to the women they are speaking to that these men will not provide desired companionship or meet their emotional needs. Women do not want to talk to men about love because we do not want to hear that most men are simply not interested in the subject, baby. What? On an honest patriarchal man will boldly proclaim that he pretends interest in love to get sex. We all know relationships in which couples remain together for more than 50 years but seem to be total strangers. They really do seem to be on different planets. Yet all too often it is the male whose needs are met in these bonds, who feels no desire to communicate, and the female who anguishes. Long before we had books like Michael Vincent Miller's Intimate Terrorism, oh shit, describing the underlying sadomasochism of such bonds, Tilly Olson painted a moving and sad portrait of a marriage like this in her story, Tell Me a Riddle. In the story, it is the patriarchal man whose values triumph and the woman whose spirit is broken. Victory for the man, however, does not mean happiness. Both parties are locked in a negative bond. It has been hard for women to face that abusive men may wield power but not be happy. While my dad dominates mom, he does not seem to be content with his power. He longs for connection. And as with many patriarchal men, womanizing allows him to conduct a secret search for love. Everyone imagines that the womanizing man is out there looking for sexual action when he may be, in fact, just searching for an honest emotional connection to ease the pain he feels as constantly as the pain felt by the woman he torments. Oh my God. Oh my God. Being sexual may allow him the space to let his guard down and receive emotional care. If patriarchal men talk to women openly, honestly, more women might want to bring an end to patriarchy. They might see more clearly the ways sexist thinking places women and men at odds with one another, creating and sustaining the conditions of gender warfare. Every female who has been in a relationship with a male who is emotionally withholding, who tries to connect with him, knows that when she communicates her desire, conflict ensues more often than not. Frequently, men are not particularly negative when asked to speak about their feelings. They simply respond by saying, I don't know the answer. This is a passive form of control, for it closes down all discussion. Ironically, the feminist movement was and is often portrayed in mass media as creating gender warfare, when the truth remains that the conflict was already happening. Feminist thinking was a solution, a way to resolve differences between men and women. Nowadays, folks like to believe that gender warfare has escalated because of the shift in gender roles. But in fact, the warfare never stopped. Unquestionably, more women turn away from abusive men. This is a positive outcome of the feminist movement. If women turning away from abusive patriarchal violence enrages men, intensifying their misogyny, feminism is not to blame. Hardcore patriarchal men rarely like women. Hardcore patriarchal women think like their male counterparts, and they both feel it's natural for these two different antagonistic groups to sexually mate with one another. It's clear that women who accept antagonism between the sexes as the natural order are happier in their relationships with men than are women who want to end the conflict. Share Heights report suggests that the vast majority of women want to see conflict end. Whether they are willing to give voice to it or not, this means that they want to see patriarchy end. As long as we live in a patriarchal culture, strife between women and men will be the norm. To some extent, changes created by the feminist movement that did not alter the underlying structure have made it possible for women and men to give voice to their discontent. It appears as though feminist thinking and practice made the conflict worse, when in reality, had they been embraced by everyone, they would have resolved many conflicts. It's hard for women to face the fact that patriarchy pits females and males against one another. When any woman first meets a man, she quickly decides, either consciously or subconsciously, whether he constitutes a threat. As long as the predominant response women have to men is initially fear, concern for our safety, then we will not have a world where women can wholeheartedly like men. Lots of women feel they need men in their lives, but far too many of them feel uncertain about whether they like men because they do not really know who men are and what they think. Or if they do, they may confess to loving men but not liking them. When women talk about what they find likable in a man, they name traits like kindness, strength of character, and integrity. As Harriet Lerner points out in Life Preservers in the section titled Mr. Right and Mr. Wrong, quote, while individual taste varies, we want a partner who is mature and intelligent, loyal and trustworthy, loving and attentive, sensitive and open, kind and nurturant, competent and responsible. I've yet to meet a woman who says, well, to be honest, I'm hoping to find an irresponsible, distant, ill-tempered sort of guy who sulks a lot and won't pick up after himself. Yet, she says, many women put more careful judgment into selecting a new toaster oven than they put into evaluating a prospective partner. End quote. Perhaps women suspend careful judgment because deep down they know that to exercise it might mean doing without male partnership for long periods of time. Looking for a man who can love is a search that can take ages. Most men are still clinging to the rewards and forms of power patriarchy extends to them for not being loving. Y'all didn't hear that. Most men are still clinging to the rewards and the forms of power patriarchy extends to them for not being loving. Since patriarchy wounds men in the place where they could be self-loving by imposing on them an identity that denies their wholeness, in order to know love, men must challenge patriarchy. Okay. And there are men who are rising to the challenge. These are the men women want to find. I was way past 30 before I made that useful list of qualities I most desired in a partner. At the top of my list of 10 qualities were honesty and openness. Had I applied this standard of evaluation, I would not have chosen the 3 talented, attracted men who had been my serious partners before I made this list. They were all 3 liars, and I knew from the beginning that they were liars. I always did for a time. When I faced this discrepancy between what I desired and what I had chosen, I was actually stunned. Therapeutic discussion of the thinking that was motivating my choices revealed a deep-seated message learned in childhood. Men never tell women the truth. While I desired truthfulness from a male partner, subconsciously I did not believe that this was a realistic expectation. Clearly, the message I had learned in childhood reveals stereotypically sexist thinking women hold about men. Women who truly believe that men can never be truthful can never feel as though they really know their male partners. If we do not know someone well, then how can we know we like them? And on what basis do we choose to love them? When women eliminate sexist attitudes towards men from our subconsciousness, we are better situated to evaluate and like the real men we encounter. While I would not choose them as partners, I like some men I know who are sexist in their thinking. Men who are liberal, benevolent patriarchs, because I see other qualities in them that I value. This does not mean I accept or condone their sexism. Knowing that both men and women are socialized to accept patriarchal thinking should make it clear to everyone that men are not the problem. The problem is patriarchy. Making the distinctions clear in Fear of 50, Erica Jong declares, quote, the truth is I don't blame individual men for this system. They carry it on mostly unknowingly. and where women carry it on unknowingly too. But more I wonder if it can ever be changed. I believe the world is full of men who are truly as perplexed and hurt by women's anger as women are perplexed by sexism, who only want to be loved and nurtured, who cannot understand how these desires have suddenly become so hard to fulfill. End quote. Patriarchy can be challenged and changed. We know this because many women and few men have radically changed their lives. The men who are comrades in struggle search for love to find the communion that is needed to support their refusal to perpetuate patriarchal thinking. The men who are our comrades in struggle show us that they are willing to be challenged, that they are willing to change. As patriarchy changes, women are able to love men more, and men are better able to love us. Chapter 12, Finding a Man to Love. When I was a drama student in college, I was in a play about the war in Vietnam called Viet Rock. It was a protest against war, against the state's willingness to send young men far from home to die. During the course of the play, all the actors sang a song with these lyrics: "Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Baskets wear out and men die young. Better to marry trees and elephants. Men die young." I entered college during the war years. The boys I knew and liked were on the road to becoming, quote, new men. They did not want to kill anymore, and moreover, they were certain they did not want to die. The feminist movement was the best thing that ever happened to these boys because it gave them the necessary tools to critique patriarchal masculinity. Unlike males before them who had refused to become soldiers, they did not have to be mired in lifelong crippling guilt because they did not want to fight in wars. They did not have to pretend to be without fear. They did not have to act as if they loved violence. As the quote new men, they were on the road to becoming lovers of life. Feminism gave them the theory to explain their resistance to sexist notions of masculinity. It gave them permission to publicly proclaim their love of life. Writing these words more than 30 years later, at a time when we are bombarded by successful war movies, Deep Impact, Armageddon, Gladiator, Pearl Harbor, that glamorize killing, I fear we are losing the memory of pain and loss our nation experienced when so many young men and women were sent away to die in Vietnam. The wars we see in today's movies are technological carnivals full of bright lights and intriguing ammo. Our boys do not love these wars. They come home intact, full of glory. Our boys do not lose these wars. They come home intact and full of glory. These movies, Independence Day, Men in Black, Air Force Ones, there are so many, it's impossible to name them all, though presented as entertainment, are also obviously pro-war imperialist propaganda. They combine the nostalgia, they combine both nostalgia and backlash. Nostalgia for the hyperglorification of patriarchal masculinity converges with a covert critique suggesting that men who do not want to fight in wars are not real men. These screen images are meant to wipe out the unglamorous history of boys and men dying young. Just as the feminist movement affirmed the anti-war movement's stance on nonviolence, it set the stage for a full-blown critique of masculinity by calling for both the elimination of patriarchy and male domination. Most important, it called on males to reclaim their full humanity, to get in touch with their emotions, to speak their feelings, to let themselves love and be loved. Everyone forgets that the real force behind the feminist movement was individual women's disappointment with men. Even though equal pay for equal work and reproductive rights soon took center stage, the rage that had welled up began in male-female relationships. Women were tired of being treated like sex objects by individual men they were relating to, whether as friends or as lovers. From the movement's inception, visionary feminist women wholeheartedly believed that it would change the lives of men for the better, and it did. While hardcore older patriarchal men and women held on to their sexism, large numbers of males struggled to rethink masculinity. Not surprisingly, men who were romantically involved with feminist women were the first converts. Threatened with the loss of meaningful relationships, they were willing, if not eager, to rethink old attitudes. It helped that the feminist movement and sexual liberation converged. Lots of men believed that there were goodies that there were goodies, not having to be sole providers, getting to have sex with liberated babes, to be gained by rethinking patriarchal masculinity or at least pretending to do so. While my lover, who was anti war and pro women's lib, supported my commitment to feminist politics and was himself a convert, he was never sure what the new masculinity should look like. On one hand, while we both agreed on throwing out the old patriarchal model of male domination, we were not interested in what we jokingly called wimp masculinity. These were the men who could not sustain an erection because to them all intercourse was rape, or the men who subordinated themselves to any woman who raised her voice or turned up the heat. They were overcooked vegetables, and there was nothing desirable about that. Instead of changing the sexist notion that in every relationship there is a dominant partner and a submissive one, these men were taking the subordinate role. And while this was not desired, it was not clear what women really did want from new men. Men wanted to satisfy these new desires without giving up old habits and ways of being. Describing these confused expectations in The Courage to Raise Good Men, Olga Silverstein and Beth Roshbaum comment, in response to the deep-seated cultural and economic changes of the last several decades, men are now expected to be all that they once were and more, sometimes in ways that contradict one another, that are downright mutually exclusive. The new men are to continue to be strong, silent types while also being emotionally available. They are to be aggressive and empathetic, tough and gentle, hard headed and sensitive. John Wayne and Alan Alda. In time, these confusing expectations led many men to simply fall back into benevolent patriarchal behavior. By the mid 80s, anti feminist backlash had pretty much silenced the voice of feminist masculinity, and there was no longer a public call for men to challenge and change patriarchy. Indeed, the tyranny of the hypermasculine reigned supreme, expressed in popular culture by the increased dominance of misogynistic rap. However, despite the backlash, nothing could change the fact that feminism had opened up new possibilities for male identity. There was a new man in the making. This man was the offspring of women and men who had made their commitment, however confusing, to challenging and changing patriarchy. This man had eagerly taken women's studies courses and had never embraced sexist thinking. Unlike the men we had known in the early and late 70s who were reluctant converts to feminist thinking, this new breed of male was born in a world changed by feminist activism. From day one, he was socialized to accept equality of sexes in every way. These males came into the universities and chose to take women's studies classes to learn more about how to divest of sexist thinking. They have been joined in this endeavor by older male peers. Their presence has been and is the real life manifestation of the truth that feminist thinking is for everyone. The pro patriarchy folks controlling mass media created the image of feminists as anti male. But as more and more men became involved in the feminist movement, this false portrait could not be sustained. Men, changed by their own chosen involvement with the feminist movement, feel differently about feminism than men who were compelled to change their behavior to please the women in their lives. And younger men raised by progressive parents, many of whom were single moms, represent a new group of men who have not needed to divest of hardcore sexist thinking because it was never part of their consciousness. When I came to feminist consciousness in the late 60s and early 70s, we were debating whether women had the upper arm strength to pilot planes. Now women pilots are the mothers of the young males who have no difficulty accepting women as equals. The existence of new men who are anti-sexist in thought and behavior has intensified women's disappointment with patriarchal men. Now that some males have changed, all women have to confront the reality that sexist, masculinist behavior, once believed to be innate, not only is learned, but can also be unlearned. These exceptional men offer to women they offer to women they encounter in either friendships or romantic relationships the possibility of experiencing mutual love. The absence of a hierarchy in which someone is on top and someone is on the bottom based on gender creates an environment where sharing and reciprocity is more the norm. Years ago, I had intense conflicts with my partner over household chores, like who would do the laundry, cook, or take out the garbage. He had to be convinced that he was not, quote, losing his manhood by doing his share. At times, it was difficult. His male friends often berated him, telling him he was pussy whipped. Today, I would not be attracted to a man who did not already assume responsibility for household chores. The good news is that there are men who embrace gender equality wholeheartedly. When I began working on these chapters about men and discussed issues with women friends, whether they were partnered or not, the question often asked was, are there any good men? My response is, of course there are. Since many of these women are in midlife, they often encounter men who are what I call unreconstructed, who have not yet converted to feminist thinking in their private lives. These men may grudgingly or happily accept women as equals on the job, but when they come home, they often want old sexist gender roles to be in place. While it diminishes all our lives that many men cling to outmoded sexism, it enriches our lives that there are expectations, that there are exceptions, men who are as liberated as any feminist woman. Many of these men are gay or bisexual. When they are straight, they are often under the age of 35. I gave a talk recently and was asked during the question and answer period, is it true that you like younger men? I answered with an emphatic no and stated that when it comes to choosing a partner, I am most attracted to men who are wholeheartedly committed to feminist thinking and practice. More often than not, the men who are the most committed to feminist thinking and practice are younger. Uh-oh. Having spent more than a decade in a relationship struggling over gender issues, fighting about fairness, when I left that relationship, I decided to choose men whom I did not need to convert to feminist thinking. The difficulty with conversion is simply that when a man changes to please a woman rather than from his own inner conviction, the changes are likely to be superficial. Most heterosexual women have been involved with a man who had some negative behavior that they fixed, only to find that in time of conflict or crisis, that behavior resurfaced. Enlightened feminist heterosexual women in midlife who have known both types of relationships, those in which we have to convince men of our rights and those in which men come to us embracing the truth of equality, know that once you have experienced the latter, there is little incentive to intimately engage unreconstructed men. Males who have been raised from the time they were born to be holistic, to develop emotionally and intellectually, do not fear that loving makes them weak or that a powerful woman diminishes them. These men do not have to be fixed because they are not wounded in the place where they would know love. In the courage to raise good men, Silverstein and Rashbaum amassed convincing data to show that patriarchal masculinity prevents men from gaining the skills to be holistic, to have emotional well-being. They effectively challenge the notion that boys need to rebel against their mothers to achieve healthy separation, linking male violence and rage to our cultural failure to teach males emotional self-expression. Observing holistic men interact is the best testimony that can their theories are accurate. Males who have been raised to be holistic, to be in touch with their feelings and able to communicate them, have more satisfying personal relationships than men who are emotionally closed and withholding. They are not ashamed to express their desire to love and be loved as boldly as women would. New men see no need to dominate others in personal interaction. They can converse without making themselves the center of attention or their concerns be the focal point. This trait pleases women. Most patriarchal men find it difficult to talk openly with women, and they usually dominate all conversations, even those with other men. They fail to listen to and are incapable of engaging in dialogue. In conversations, they usually give speeches or tell stories. Baby, oh my God. All women, whether they see themselves as advocating feminism or not, like men who are able to listen and give feedback. Since talking is deemed feminine and silence masculine, men who talk openly are often regarded suspiciously. If heterosexual, they may be seen as gay by male peers. Yet most women long to know men with whom they can have meaningful reciprocal conversations. This is a trait that makes the new man an alluring and exciting partner. Being in his presence is like being in the presence of a woman friend. In private conversations, most women will admit that they are not impressed by patriarchal masculinity, that they would prefer the company of men who are as congenial and easy to communicate with as women friends. Women who, women who say that they want male partners who are capable of mutual dialogue are often intimidated when they encounter men who honor female subjectivity. This may be especially the case in sexual interaction. A few years ago, I wrote a short essay for the collection Transforming a Rape Culture, describing my initial confusion and fear when I had a male lover who truly honored my body, free to give full expression to sexual feelings, including the right to say no during any sexual interaction and at any stage. I was not sure how to behave. I was so accustomed to men who placed the satisfaction of their sexual desire over mine and any other woman's well being. Unlike all other sexual encounters I had with men, there was never a moment when I had to pretend to feel something I did not feel. All my feelings were welcome. Often in sexual encounters, women find that males respond with hostility if the woman expresses displeasure or discomfort. When I shared with women friends the nature of our interaction, they kept saying, "Are you sure he isn't gay?" I learned an important lesson then. We demand that men change, and when they do, we are often not ready to affirm and embrace the liberation we claim to desire. New men can testify that the world is not yet ready for all they have to offer, because it is their behavior more than any feminist theory that challenges conventional accepted beliefs about the nature of masculinity. John Stoltenberg's The End of Manhood, a book for men of conscience, offers an honest account of the process of men of conscience, the account of the process that men of conscience go through when they refuse to perform patriarchal masculinity. Stressing that such men learn to love justice more than patriarchal manhood, he writes, quote, learning to live as a man of conscience means deciding that your loyalty to the people whom you love is always more important than whatever lingering loyalty you may sometimes feel to other men's judgment of your manhood, end quote. In the presence of liberated men, women's commitment to equality is tested. Individuals who see feminism as a way to place women on top are just as threatened by anti-sexist men as anyone else. True equality means that females no longer have the luxury to indulge in notions that we are the superior sex when it comes to matters of the heart, to caregiving, and to acts of love. Again and again, I hear anti-sexist men talk about the flack they receive from women who want them to be dominating, but not too dominating. This desire is an expression of the confused expectations many women have who fear that the new man will not be masculine. Until our understanding of what it means to be masculine is changed from sexist norms, we have no standards by which to evaluate new men. When women are asked what trait they want to find in a man, they often say strength. When asked to define what they mean, they usually acknowledge wanting males who are able to assume responsibility for their own actions, who can act decisively. These traits are ones many women seek to possess. They are traits present in mature, emotionally healthy individuals. Embracing equality means that all have to let go of our attachment to the idea of gender difference. Affirming feminist masculinity may feel and look the same as feminist self actualization in women. When I first began teaching women's studies classes years ago, almost all my students were women. Slowly, things began to change. Men who came to the feminist classroom expressed concern about gender roles. They wanted to find out how they could be self actualized as males without conforming to patriarchal models. There is still not enough material to guide and direct males in seeking feminist liberation. Often, men who are anti sexist go into hiding to remove themselves from the pressure to conform to sexist norms that are all around them. We need to hear their stories to know what liberated masculinity looks like and feels like. They are the good men women are looking to encounter. With them, no woman has to fear domination or the threat of sexual violence. They have no manhood that must be proven by aggression against womanhood. Offering a useful definition of the good man, offering a good definition of the good man, Silverstein and Rashbaum shared this insight. Quote, the good man, like the good woman, will be an empathic and strong, autonomous and connected, responsible to self, to family and friends, and to society, and capable of understanding how those responsibilities are ultimately inseparable. My work brings me in touch with many good men. I believe that much anti-feminist backlash began as a way to counter the movement of males, young and old, toward feminist thinking and practice. As anti-sexist, quote, good men make themselves known and let their voices be heard, women will turn away from men who are held captive in the prisons of patriarchal silence. Patriarchal culture was not disturbed when feminism appeared to be a woman-only thing. However, as more males become involved, feminist cultural revolution threatened to bring an end to patriarchy. To encounter this hopeful and life-affirming change, feminist thinking was and continues to be viciously attacked. Yet no degree of anti-feminist propaganda can change the reality that feminism has already created a world where there are new men who can offer women the mutual love we long for. Among these new men are loving gay folk who are role models for straight men, who are role models straight men can learn from. Women, when women who want to be with male partners search for love, we must first accept that we will never find it in the arms of patriarchy. When this acceptance is widespread, more men will choose liberation. Traveling around our nation talking about love, I've encountered many men who want to be loving and who are willing to do the work. They find it difficult because there are just not enough support structures in place to affirm loving feminist masculinity. The path to male self-love is as arduous as the path to female self-love. We all usually have to begin this journey by going back to childhood to do the work of reparenting, to love ourselves rightly. I have heard the testimony of many adult men who were loving little boys. Their right to know love was mocked and ridiculed by adults. These men are working to recover the joy that they experienced when they felt they could open their hearts and just let the feelings come in. Males who love are not yet as plentiful as the males who are yearning for love. The space of male yearning is the space of possibility. Women who love men and want them to be free willingly open their hearts to hear what men need to say as they search for ways to return love. We are eager to read the books by men who are not from Mars, but who are right here on this earth, giving and receiving love. They can offer us healing wisdom. When they let their hearts speak, the dialogue of love can commence and true heterosexual communion can emerge. That is the end of chapter 12. So, for those who might be joining late, I was reading from the book Communion, The Female Search for Love by Bell Hooks. Communion, The Female Search for Love by Bell Hooks. So if you're interested in hearing the rest of that book, I uploaded the reading of that book a couple of months ago on my YouTube channel. So in order to get to my YouTube channel, you have to go into YouTube and in the search and put the @ Daughter of the Fates as one word. Because if you just YouTube Daughter of the Fates, some bullshit comes up, and I'm assuming in an attempt to sabotage my page, because a couple months ago that was not there, but all of a sudden it's like sexual violence that's coming up when you type in the Daughter of the Fates. So you have to do @ Daughter of the Fates as a single word in order to find my page. On that page, when you go into the live section, you'll see all the lives that I've done, and you'll see the book Communion by Bell Hooks, The Female Search for Love by Bell Hooks, and you can hear the rest of that really dynamic reading. These 2 chapters that I read tonight were not in it because it was too long to upload. So I was asked this week to reread chapters 11 and 12. So that was 11 and 12 that you just heard from Communion, The Female Search for Love by Bell Hooks. So that is it for this evening. My name is Cassandra Faye Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates. I am the founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. And so join me every night at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I don't know what's going on with my StreamYard. It's constantly. Well, for those being 3 days, I will fix standard time. The Alchemist. You'll be able to catch those readings of The Alchemist over the next 3 days. For those of you who are tuning in other ways, I don't know, like my shit just shut down, so I'm sorry about that. But for those of you tuning through IG, tune in 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every day. I will be doing something, whether it's a read or whether it's a talk, every day for forever, 5 p.m. I will be every day through the week, Monday through Friday. I will be doing a broadcast live every day from 5 p.m. Every Saturday at 11 a.m. Every Saturday from 11 to 1, we will be doing the service of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. So join us here. Keep yourselves tuned in. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on this week. We're entering into a pretty powerful energetic period right now. There are 7 planets in retrograde right now. And we're about 3 days out from a super blue moon in Libra. Actually, it's a Libra super new moon in Virgo. And so it's just a lot happening. Take care of your heart in these days coming. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself grace. Understand? Be tender with yourself. Be deliberate and actionable, but try to steer clear of self-judgment. We can be our own worst critics. So try to steer clear from self-judgment. Try not to take people's actions personally. It's a really intense period that we're entering into. And so just, care for yourselves. Tomorrow I'll be doing the reading. I'm going to read for 1 hour, but I may do a second live just for some updates on how we can care for ourselves as we're entering into this super blue moon that will be from August 30th to August 31st, coming up in a few days. So with that being said, thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Again, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is at Daughter of the Fates, one word, and catch up on anything that you've missed, any past readings, any past workshops or lectures or anything. And like, share, subscribe if anything touches your spirit. Okay? That being said, I will see you guys tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.